Hello, good evening, Abby, here of Sirius B.
Good evening. Thank you for coming, or good whatever it is where you are.
You're quite welcome. There are three moons in my view now. How may I be of service this evening? I would like to speak to your earlier comment about
Please.
the channeler who was giving voice to prophesying world events, unpleasant and difficult world events. It is not only she, but all humans who entertain various thoughts that they are retrieving either consciously or unconsciously from the universal mind. And there are an infinite number of these thoughts in the universal mind, from the brightest and most glorious revelations to the darkest and most devious and degenerate, you see, and a spectrum of everything in between. And so to have control over your mind is true mastery. So each one, as we said, is consciously or unconsciously retrieving thoughts from the universal consciousness. You see, humans are mistaken in that they think the thoughts they think are primarily of their own creation. But in truth, their thoughts, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, their thoughts are not their own creation. They are thoughts retrieved from the universal mind, from the thoughts floating about here and there in the ether. And so one will attach to momentarily a thought that is of a like vibration and frequency, you see. So for one who resonates in the realm of fear, they will be attracted to other thoughts in the universal mind that are fear-based, you see. So they will continually attract thoughts that are in resonance with their being, and they will likely consider that these thoughts are their own, or if they are of a spiritual mind, they may consider these thoughts to have come from another being or another source. Many, as you know, fear-based, deeply entrenched in false ideologies and religion, they absolutely believe that their thoughts and their line of thinking are from God. This is a deception, you see.
Yes.
So psychic ones like this vessel and like the one you were speaking of earlier must be extraordinarily careful what thoughts from the universal mind they attach to. You see, there can be a growing consciousness, let's say a growing consciousness towards a Syrian war. This is a real consciousness in the ether that may be growing and expanding in power and resonance. And so one with psychic gifts may pick up on this growing and expanding psychic consciousness, let's say, for example, around a looming Syrian war, you see. And so they may lend their voice to it I sense a coming Sirian war, and this is going to happen. And so they begin to resonate with that growing consciousness around that idea. And their voices are extremely powerful because of their gifts. You see, this is why when you talk about various things, this thing that shall happen and this thing that shall likely happen and so on, and these negative potentials, which are potentials, we understand that. They are potentials because they are gathering momentum in the consciousness. But this is why she refuses to lend her assent to it, because she has a knowing, an understanding which we have given her, which is that because of the power in which she operates, she does not and will not lend her assent to those things.
Are you talking about the vessel?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is then, this is what I don't understand. The Pleiadians are supposed to be a collective and they all act as one. So why does one person channel the Pleiadians and this Pleiadian says XYZ is going to happen, and then maybe the vessel channels the Pleiadian and this Pleiadian says ABC is going to happen? Well, if they're both Pleiadian and then how can it be two different things from one group of people?
There are an innumerable, infinite number of thoughts in the universal mind. It does not matter if you are human, Pleiadian, Arcturian, and so on. Listen carefully to what we're saying. You must be one vessel that is speaking, one channeler, one prophet, one psychic, can align with any innumerable vast numbers of thoughts. Even within a particular collective, of course, there are millions and millions of different thoughts and perspectives.
So are you saying the information that some of these channels are getting from are coming from the universal mind and not necessarily a Pleiadian or Arcturian or Sirian?
No. We are not questioning the source of the information. How does one access Pleiadian or Arcturian or Andromedan insight?
I don't know the channelers.
Through connection to the universal mind.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. So everything goes through the universal mind.
Well, there are times that a singular presence, such as myself, will be communicating telepathically, an individual soul. Sometimes an individual soul, such as myself, is representing only the self, and other times they are representing a collective. But it's ultimately the energy of the receiver that will determine the orientation of the message. You see, a Pleiadian or Arcturian or any higher dimensional being can issue a telepathic message. If the vessel, however, is twisted or misidentified in any particular way, then their understanding or interpretation of the message can be skewed. And this is where we would caution you. When you listen to a viable channeler, is the channeler in a channeling state, or are they interpreting through their mind what they think they heard in a channeling state? Interpretation is the place in which meaning can be lost.
Okay.
For example, in the interchange you had with the gentleman working on the yard, there was a language barrier, you see.
Yes.
And the language barrier and the cultural innuendos cause some misunderstanding. So sometimes things are lost in translation.
So, okay, so if Sally is channeling Bob, who is Pleiadian or whatever, and the Pleiadian says something to Bob to channel, and it comes out wrong. Can't the Pleiadian say, wait a minute, stop, that's not what I was trying to say? I know that sometimes Cryan will say to Lee, now get this right, slow down and get this right, make sure you get this right.
Yes. Well, all beings are evolving, and relationships are being established. And understand it is not just the filter of the channeler that is involved, but your own filters and predispositions that may skew what is being, the way you understand what is being said.
Yes. So,
well, this is something we want to say about this.
Please.
The ego will make things very complicated.
Yes.
And so the truth is very simple. And so when you listen to any messenger, be it channeled or otherwise, you must follow your instinct and in your intuitive sense of what is true. This is why when this vessel hears talk of this war or that or this collapse or whatever, there is no sense whatsoever in her being that this is correct. It does not align with what we have told her. And so she cannot align herself with that.
Okay, yes, I understand that. So then my question would be...
one more thought.
Please.
And so, for instance, when it was said recently to you in channeling, there may be a time you will need to hide the vessel from certain governmental authorities that would like to use her gifting for their own purposes.
Yes, I remember.
As she was listening to that message, there was a zero fear in her. Zero. And so it rang true to her. It felt simple. It bore the fruit of peace in her, and this is her measure of its validity, you see. So things that are very complex or lead to fearful or anxious ends are likely untrue.
Okay.
Or not from a higher source, we would say.
Okay. So, no, I understand that, and I don't necessarily believe everything that I am told. I listen, and it's like, okay, fine, whatever, who knows? But I think maybe what I should stop doing is just quit listening to other channelers.
We would agree.
Okay, yeah.
It is, imagine a child in a school setting. If there is one teacher, that child can hear and process what is being said. What if there were 10 or 20 teachers in the room? How would the child learn?
Yeah. And there's the same.
And so there is a problem in the culture, and it is an untruth that more is better.
Right. And I used to say the saying a lot that one can only serve one master.
That is correct. And so it is not of service. This vessel will not listen to these other things, not because they are not valid and she does not appreciate their service and what they have to offer, but simply because she does not want to spoil the soup with too many ingredients.
Yeah.
It is better for her own sake, for clarity and for the purpose which she serves, to keep a clear mind.
Yes, and I think part of the issue is that I still sometimes feel like I need to be entertained, and since there's nothing but garbage on the TV, I think, okay, if I'm listening to a channeler, then at least I'm listening to something that could be beneficial or good for my highest good. But now I see that no, that is not true.
Yes, and so we would like to speak to the very specific channel you're speaking of, which this vessel has not seen or heard. But we will tell you what has happened there. In this particular case, this vessel, the vessel who gave the channel, the other channel you spoke of, has been absorbing news around the current events in Syria. And as we said, a growing consciousness, a dark consciousness and dark focus of many in the world towards a looming war. And so in the opening of herself to the information, she inadvertently joined the dark consciousness forming and aligned herself with the messaging from that growing dark consciousness. Is what she's speaking true? Perhaps. But there is something more important than speaking the truth. What is more important is to give your attention to what is for the highest and best. To give your attention, to turn your attention away from what is unwanted towards what is of heaven, what is of the will of heaven. You see.
Yes, I understand.
But it is, to her credit, we will say, it is going to be for her and for all other vessels like her and this one, it is a constant temptation. It is easy to be sucked into a negative vortex in the ether. Negative vortexes in the universal mind. And to the degree that there is grace, we would ask these vessels to abstain from these vortices, because their voices are needed to point towards light. Pointing to darkness will only increase it, you see.
Yes.
Pointing to the light will increase the light. So you and others or whomever may think of Judah as foolishly optimistic. We are okay with that. Because the calling is clear. Highest and best. Highest and best. What is full of life and light.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I guess what occurs to me, is that I want to do everything I can to protect the vessel. I feel like that's my job. And so if there's some kind of information that I do need to know in order to prepare for something,
we will give it to you.
Okay, and I believe that, and I don't know why I just don't let that be.
Well, we would say that we hear you, and we're going to tell you what this is about. Fears of the future will cause you to be drawn into these dark vortices of the universal mind, particularly of human consciousness, which these dark energetic vortices of human consciousness can be heavily influenced by reptilian control. And so your own fears, your deep love for your wife and your appreciation for the work that is being done, there is a shred of fear there, and so it can lead you into these vortices, and fears will cause you to want to find evidence in their support, you see. So if there's a fear that you won't be able to keep your wife safe, you will look for and find messages to support and substantiate this fear, you see. And so what we recommend is that you look inside instead of listening to these external messages that are energetic dark portals of fear. They will only validate your fear. They will only give you evidence to support your fear. Instead of looking outside, look inside to find why you're afraid that you cannot keep your wife safe.
Yes, I am aware part of that is fear from me, and I've been working on that. And I've also been working on when I start to think about some of these negative things that I hear from a channel, when it pops into my mind, I turn it into a positive. I have started, especially today, more of, once again, I'm the mayor of Charlotte, rather than looking at the harmful, the traffic, the et cetera,
Yes.
negative things.
Yes.
Once again, putting out, Charlotte, let's provide a house and food for the homeless and the hungry. So I have been working on that.
Yes, good. And what we will say for the broader audience listening is that whatever fear you have, there is evidence aplenty outside of you to reinforce and build the case in support of your fear. And so there is the ego. The ego is like a lawyer that looks for evidence and collects evidence in order to argue for the fear, you see. And so making your lists of all the reasons why that support your fear. Remember, fear is always built on a lie, so deal with the lie and the fear will die. So once you retrieve the fear in meditation and reflection, I am afraid of, then you must understand that that statement is a lie. It is an untruth. Perfect love casts out all fear. So as your love for your wife is perfected, you will fear nothing at all in her regard. Nothing at all. Perfect love will cast out every fear.
Okay. And I will say within the last, few days, maybe even today, I did explain to somebody that when you have a belief about something, then a belief that's related to a fear, then your ego mind will go about creating a situation that has that happen so that it can say, see, we were right. There is something to fear about this.
Yes, that is correct. Exactly. And to those dear channelers, such as the beautiful one of which you speak, we would ask them to be very careful where they give their attention and lend their voice, because their voices are some, not all channelers, but some of their voices are prophetic, meaning that when they say a thing, it releases the thing, it unlocks it. And so their tongues can be like keys to unlock a Pandora's box, you see. And so they must be very careful of where they give their attention and what they say.
Okay.
And there are people, precious people, who have fears. We understand the tendency towards fear, and we understand that there are so many things that provoke these fears, and these precious ones will come to this vessel and want to ask a question around their fear, and she cannot give them evidence to support their fear, you see? She can only dismantle it. This is her task.
Well, I will say that one of the reasons that I was tuning into Marina is because she was, and originally she was showing how the universe works, how,
Yes.
the negatives, the positives,
Yes.
below the line, above the line. And that's what was intriguing me in the beginning, because
Yes.
that's what I was mainly focusing in on.
Yes, and it's a very powerful teaching.
Yeah,
Yes.
but then last time, and usually I don't hear her say a bunch of negative stuff.
That
or
is
something.
correct. That is
But
correct.
this last
yes.
time, she did. She went off the deep end, I think. So.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay. She is a human being, of course. And there are in realms of when one has been given status as one in the know, then there is there are people who want them to comment on various topics, and it takes great courage to say, I cannot comment on that, or I cannot tell you what you want to hear. I cannot and will not give you the evidence to support your fear. You see.
Yes.
And so you may pray for this, dear one, that she will realign with the truth, the amazing truth she has been given, and not be sidetracked by anyone or by any negative vortices. And also remember that these ones, especially when they are, as they rise to a more high profile status, they become more of a target of dark energies, you see.
Yes, I know.
And so they need loving prayers of protection from others.
Okay, so I should be praying.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.